Thank you to all of you for being here this evening. My name is Rabbi Jeff Mitelman. I am the founding director of Sinai and Synapses, which is an organization that bridges the scientific and religious worlds. It aims to give people tools and language that's scientifically grounded and spiritually uplifting. And so, as a way to frame some of the conversations this evening about Judaism and science, I want to give us all some ways to think about and talk about the relationship between Judaism and science, some tools and some language. And I want to base it actually on a talk given by a woman named Dr. Jennifer Wiseman, who is a NASA astrophysicist and directs the dialogue on science, ethics, and religion. This is based on a talk that she gave. But I want to present 4 different models for ways we can think about and talk about the relationship of Judaism and science. And they actually go in increasing orders of sophistication, and they all start with the same letter, so hopefully this will be easy to follow. The lowest level, the least sophisticated level, is what we call the conflict model. This is the idea that science is on one side, religion is on the other. If you pick one, you have to reject the other one. This is the one that gets the most media play. This is the one that we hear about and think about the most. But as we are starting to see, that model actually doesn't work very well for a whole host of reasons. First of all, it often devolves into arguments of you're stupid, no, you're stupid, no, you're stupid. It doesn't get us anywhere productive. But perhaps even more importantly, very few people actually buy into this model. In fact, I would guess very few people in this room buy into this model. Instead, I think actually most people here, in some capacity, buy into religion in some way and science in some way. So we don't have to reject one if we accept the other. So the conflict model doesn't really work very well. But the second model, the next one that's up in sophistication, is what we call the concert model. The concert model is the idea that science and religion overlap. That in fact, if you read Genesis in the right way, it matches very nicely with the theory of evolution and the Big Bang. Or we can understand how the Israelites crossed the Red Sea because there was a volcano in the Mediterranean on April 17th at 2:32 p.m., 1442 BCE. And you can see why the concert model also has some issues, because it involves a lot of mental gymnastics. It involves trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. And what often happens with the concert model is if you're basing your religious outlook on scientific findings, science changes. There's always new information that's coming along. And so if the foundation starts to rock and shift, our religious outlook may collapse. In fact, the concert model very easily collapses into the conflict model when people either reject religion or science. So the concert model also doesn't work all that well. The third model, one that actually I found a lot of people buy into and works generally very well, is a model called the contrast model. It's a simpler way to say something a little more complicated, something that Stephen Jay Gould had described, the non-overlapping magisteria. The contrast model is the idea that religion and science live in separate spheres, and they don't really have to be in conversation with each other. Sometimes it's phrased as science deals with how, and religion deals with why. So if the conflict model is just a pile of rubble, and the concert model is one that lasts until a heavy rainstorm, the contrast model can last up until a hurricane. But it still can break down. And the reason it can break down is because the magisteria actually do overlap. Science and religion do deal with similar kinds of questions. So, for example, religion had always been about where did we come from? And that was always our origin stories in Genesis. But then science came and encroached on that methodology. So then religion changed and said, okay, we're really about ethics. But we all know religious people who are not ethical, and ethical people who are not religious. And so the contrast model breaks down because, in fact, we can deal with those different kinds of questions. They actually overlap a lot more than we think they do. And that leads to what I think is the most sophisticated model, and the model that Sinai and Synapses tries to advocate. And that's what we call the contact model. The contact model is the idea that science and religion, yes, they deal with different subjects, yes, they come at it from different perspectives, but they're both ultimately trying to answer the question, what does it mean to be human? How can I be a better person? How can I make our world a little bit more whole? And so there, even though science and religion deal with different questions, even though the Torah is not a science textbook, we can use the best of science and the best of religion in the service of making ourselves and our world a little bit better, a little bit more whole. And that's the framework that I would love for us to be able to look at tonight. So as you're looking at how evolutionary history informs what it means to be an adolescent today, or the cognitive science of learning and how that can better Jewish education, or the way technology can help us understand what it means to be spiritual, by recognizing that science and religion do deal with different questions, but that they do come together, they are in conversation. We can appreciate science, we can appreciate religion, and even more importantly, we can embrace both with a sense of wholeness and togetherness and inspiration. Thank you very much.